You want to try and have that your fulcrum lined up with your forearm. So it's going down along here. You don't want to have your wrist bent toward you like this or away from you like this. This is going to make it harder for you to be able to rotate your forearm. If you have any kind of a wrist bend, you're not going to really be able to get a good rotation in there. It's not going to be as quick as if you have the fulcrum lined up along here. Traditional grip, you're going to have this rotary, and you can't really rotate super good if you're bent away from your body or bent toward your body like this. Now, when it comes to match grip though, there's many different ways that you can play match grip. So there's French grip where your thumb is up. There's German grip where your palm is facing towards the ground and your hand is flat. And there's American, which is kind of in between. There's a little bit of a slope here. Depending on what you're using with this, it's going to change where the stick is in alignment with your forearm. If you are doing a French grip, then it might be aligned so that the stick goes straight down your forearm like that. If you're doing German grip, your hand is going to be flat. Should your wrist be bent in? Should your wrist be bent out? What should you be doing here? How much angle should there be with the wrist? Is it supposed to be aligned like this, kind of like with traditional grip? Is it supposed to be bent out like this? Or is it supposed to be bent in? What are we supposed to do here? Depends on what kind of technique you're using with this. In general, you want to try and get it so that the bead is kind of an extension of the arm. So if you notice right here, my forearm is going down, and then where it aligns is at the tip of the stick. So it is not my wrist in alignment 100% with my forearm. My wrists were in alignment like this so that it's going straight. Check out the stick angles of this. If I were to move my wrist straight up and down, this would be a very weird looking motion. And this is without changing my fingers. If I wanted to make it so that my stick started to align more, this is going to create some issues where you're going to lose some of the control that you have with your sticks. So if you are playing so that your wrist is flat and you're like, okay, I want to make it so that this is more of an extension, and you move the angle of the stick over so that it aligns more with the forearm, you lose your back finger control when you're doing this. And so you'll get basically the front two fingers and maybe a little bit of the middle finger. So to kind of like compensate for this, what we end up doing is having just like a little bit of a wrist angle. So you can still have all the control with all your fingers, use all the mechanics to your advantage here. You don't want to have wasted energy or wasted potential in terms of like not having fingers connected and things like that. To get that alignment on here and to keep the control, we just have a little bit of a wrist bend. So it's not a huge wrist bend. We're not going like this. A little bit is okay. So you want to try and get it so that the stick is lined up with the rest of your arm, so it can be an extension of your forearm, and so you can use a little bit of molar if you'd like to. So it gives you a little bit more power behind what you're doing. Before I get to the next tip, I just want to say really quickly that you can find literally thousands of hours of free drumming play-alongs and drumming tips in the link at the top of the description, or by going into my home tab of YouTube. How do you get better at flam fives? Ooh, good question. You can either do 16th note flam 5 grid variations or the triplet flam 5 grid variations. You can do it forward or you can do it backward. There's a bunch more variations in here. Just focus on flam 5 on 1 for right now. It takes a rudiment, in this case a flam 5. It plays accent on 1, accent on 2, accent on 3. You do that 4 counts each, and then you do 2 counts of it. So accent on 1, accent on 2, accent on 3, and it repeats it again. And then you do 1 count of each. So accent on 1, 2, and 3. So flam 5s, if you slow this down, and you get that down, cool. The second measure, and then the third measure puts it on 3. If you can put any rudiment into a grid, this makes it so you can play them in any kind of accent context or permutation. This is why I have over 900 grid variations, is because it's just like one of the most valuable things you can do to work on a rudiment. Maybe you don't want to work on grid. That's fine. That's fine. If you scroll down here to the technique section, underneath the rudiment builders, there are some flam 5 builders in here. You know that flam accent exercise that like everybody and their mom does, like, and that's just basically what your hand is doing when you're playing like this. It takes that idea, but it does it with a flam 5 context. Instead of dut da da da, you're playing did it da 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 da. That's what your right hand will play with a flam 5. And this exercise, the flam 5 builder, what it's doing is it's adding in 1 note at a time, every single line. So right here, it adds in the first left-hand grace note. Then it adds in the left-hand accent. Then it adds in another left hand right there. Full flam 5 for an entire line, and then it removes 1 right hand per line. So we get rid of this right hand, then we get rid of this right hand, and then we get rid of this right hand, and then finally we get rid of the grace note right hand right there. Another way you can work on your flam 5s is either fast, fast, or slow, fast, slow. Let's say you're doing flam 5s and you want to work on it with triplets. Go into the timestamps, pick pick a BPM range. Let's say the fastest you can play a Flam 5 is 140 beats a minute. So you go, I want to start at 40, go up to 140, and then slow it back down to 40. It's going to just play triplets starting at 40, and then it'll go up to 41, and then it'll go up to 42, and then 43. And so I'm skipping ahead a bunch, and it's gonna go all the way up to 140, and it gets to 140, it'll hold it here for 4 measures, and then it'll slow it back down 1 click at a time until it gets all the way back down to 40, and it's just playing triplets the whole time. Fast, slow, fast is the opposite of this. It starts off at 140 or whatever BPM you want, and it slows it all the way down to 40. It holds it there for 4 measures, and then it goes all the way back up to your speed. Let's say you're not the like center snare or the center tenor. Your entire role is to just listen in to the person next to you closest towards the center. If you are practicing with these play-alongs, it simulates that. If I wanted to work on listening in on rolls, I could go to the 16th note diddle playlist right here, and there are 19 videos that are specific for working on my rolls. And so I could work on listening in while practicing this way. If I was the center, I needed to be able to play with perfect interpretation while practicing. So this is also a great way to work on that as well, because it is forcing you to listen into basically a robot, a computer that is playing with perfect interpretation on any one of these. So using play-alongs is better than using a metronome because of that ability to listen in and to hear the interpretation of the rhythm and get it perfectly rhythmically precise. But it is also helpful to work on your internal sense of timing, which will develop through these on its own. But if you put a metronome to half notes or to whole notes, that will help you to be able to develop that sense of time over time. But the majority of what I would recommend doing is playing with these so you can work on listening in and getting that proper interpretation, especially on stuff like the diddle timing exercises. Like if we go into here, it's specifically designed to work on preventing slurred and rushed diddles. The way that this exercise is written out is we have diddle on 1, diddle on 2, diddle on 3, and for each one of those it's got slurred, normal, rushed, normal. So it will allow you to feel and hear what the slurred and a rushed diddle sounds like, so you can actually play with perfect interpretation when you're doing this. So I highly recommend using the play-alongs to be able to do that. The exercise called Rebound, you start with the beat of the stick up, you throw it into the head as fast as possible and let it rebound as fast as possible for every one of the notes. So quarter notes, no tension while you're doing this. You don't want to grip the stick too much. You just want to have it so that your stick basically does instant transmission, teleports into the head and back up as quickly as possible, getting your hand out of the way. And what you do is you start high, so you get that big powerful stroke, and you eventually go to like 6 inches while doing this and throwing it into the head as fast as possible to get a nice beefy sound. And this is going to build up that twitch muscle while staying relaxed with your hands while you're doing this. And if you want to get fancy with it, you can do rebound canon, 2 different rhythms, polyrhythms, etc. That one's a fun little challenge.